I'm a mama of one. I'm a Spanish teacher. My name is Taylor, and I'm a miraculous mama.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy, and we believe in empowering women through storytelling and education, which is exactly what we plan on doing, is telling stories and educating ourselves. This month is going to be packed with all of those things. Today, I'm super excited about our guest, Jess Gronas. She is part of our Miraculous Mamas community. So I'm so excited that she was able to come on, and she's going to share her experience with us dealing with preeclampsia, because May is Preeclampsia Awareness Month. So if you guys haven't noticed by now, I love trying to do all the different awarenesses. I keep a calendar of them, but I've noticed since I've been pregnant that I've missed quite a few. I feel like my pregnancy brain set in a while ago. And so I've missed a few of them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I forgot to do an episode on this. So next year, we'll have more episodes. Also, when it comes to specific things, it's really important for me to get the right guest on to speak to it. So I know that there was a couple of things back in February that I wanted to get somebody on for, and it was just with scheduling, we weren't able to make it work. But the guest should be coming on soon. And it's really important for me with certain topics to try to, like I said, get the right person to come on to educate us and make us more aware and be able to continue the conversations and help us learn and grow as a community. So I don't even remember how Jess and I started talking, but she's a certified personal trainer. She helps future and new mamas balance the transition to motherhood through fitness, faith, and a healthy lifestyle. She also has a podcast of her own, and I got to go on her podcast, which was so much fun. Her podcast is called Fit and Faithful Podcast. So if you guys go there, I talk with her about my role as a doula, how I became one. I never really dove like super deep into the story on here. So I tell her, I go like back 12 years with her and talk about like the first birth I ever saw and what inspired me to be a doula, and you know, just the stats and statistics that I'd learned and papers I wrote, and just kind of how my crazy life of adventures led me to this path of wanting to empower and advocate for women. And so it was just a really fun conversation. Then I was able to interview her about preeclampsia, because you guys, preeclampsia, it's one of those things that, and we talk about it more in the episode, but there's really nothing you can do to prevent it. So there's a lot of things that can happen during pregnancy, and a lot of times we aren't made aware of them until it happens to somebody that you know, or it happens to you. And I think that there's a lot of pros and cons to that. Like, the pro is that when you get pregnant, they're not giving you a list of things of, hey, this could potentially go wrong, and this could be this could be risking your life or your baby's life, or this could, like, if we got all of that information, we got pregnant of every single potential thing that could go wrong, pregnancy is already scary. You're already worried, like, is the baby okay? Is everything okay? There's so much unknown. Like, we would just be absolute messes. I don't know if our body could handle the stress. But the con is sometimes not having the information. So continuing going on with something undiagnosed that could be a high risk. So that's why I love having these conversations with these women, because they're able to share their story, their symptoms, what they went through, so that when you're pregnant or you're going through this, you can be like, I didn't know that was a symptom. Like, maybe if I have high blood pressure, I should talk to my doctor about it. Or maybe, if I have these certain signs or symptoms, bring that up in my next appointment. So there's definitely things to look for. And the more you know about that, and the faster that you can tell your healthcare provider, you can come up with a plan together for your safety, for your baby's safety. And there's also a lot of options in those things as well. Some things are more high risk than others, but you can still talk to your provider about what options you have and different things that you can do. So for those of you that do not know, preeclampsia is a disorder that occurs only during pregnancy and the postpartum period and affects both the birth mother and the unborn baby. It affects anywhere from 5 to 8% of all pregnancies, and it is a rapidly progressive condition characterized by high blood pressure and usually the presence of protein in the urine. Swelling, sudden weight gain, headaches, and changes in vision are important symptoms. However, some women with rapidly advancing when this is happening really fast to them, sometimes they report few symptoms. So I don't know, like Jess will talk to us about the symptoms that she had. I know a lot of people will look and be like, well, yeah, maybe I gained some weight, some sudden weight during pregnancy, but it might not be a big deal. Or, yeah, I've had some headaches and maybe it's not a big deal. Like I don't have swelling. And it's like, well, there is a list of symptoms. So again, if there's certain things that are showing up for you, it's something that you definitely want to talk to your provider about. And it's like it said there, it only occurs in pregnancy, usually after 20 weeks of pregnancy, but it can even lead to like having seizures and things like that. Like it is really serious globally. Preeclampsia, it's like a hypertensive disorder. So globally, it does contribute to quite a few deaths of, maternal and infant. So it's definitely something that you, again, look for the signs and symptoms. That's the great thing about where we live is that we do have healthcare provided. Even if you don't have insurance, like you can go to the hospital, you can go, talk to your doctor. There's people in remote places that have lack of healthcare, which contributes to a lot of those deaths. So, who have to travel miles to get somewhere. But we do have a fun conversation. We laugh a lot. Jess is just such good energy and so much fun. And so I'm going to go ahead and start the interview for you. All right, everyone. I have Jessica Gronas here. She has her newborn with her. She just had a baby and she recently had an experience with preeclampsia. It's Preeclampsia Awareness Month. And I thought it'd be nice to get somebody from our group to kind of share their story and experience with it. Because one thing that I've learned just from talking to doctors and specialists is it can affect anyone. And it doesn't matter. You could be perfectly healthy before you have a baby. You could be perfectly healthy during your pregnancy. You could do everything right. And you could still get preeclampsia. It's one of those things that kind of has no rhyme or reason, but when it happens, it can be life-threatening and very dangerous and a scary thing. So I wanted to have somebody who had an experience with it to come on, and Jessica just had a very recent experience with it. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Yes, I have a 6-week-old with us right now, and it is nuts how soon or how recently that was for all of that with me. So it all started, I had a headache. So from the beginning of my pregnancy, let me go back to that. I was great, like working out. I'm a personal trainer. I was training people. I felt amazing. And people would ask like, how's it going? And I'm like, I think I like being pregnant. Like I'm one of those people. It doesn't bother me any. And I think I was about 30-ish weeks, 32, and I got a really bad headache. And so it was like a 3-day headache. And so I was laying on the couch in the middle of the night, couldn't sleep, Googling, headaches and pregnancy. And I did read something about preeclampsia, high blood pressure, but I'm like, okay, my blood pressure is always great. It's like perfect. And so I didn't think much of it, but one of my coworkers was like, you should check your blood pressure. And so I thought, well, I guess I might as well check it. And I work in a school, so the school nurse has a place to check it, and I think it was like 155/93. And so not like crazy high, but also not my normal 120 over 80, which is where I was pretty average and fell in that range. And so long story short, I called back and forth to the doctor, and then the next day it was a little bit higher, and they had me come in. I mean, they were like, you need to come now, basically. And they diagnosed me with preeclampsia. But in my opinion, I thought it was kind of like a fluke because my blood pressure wasn't high after that. So I would go in for non-stress tests twice a week, and everything was great every time. However, I had to do the 24-hour urine test. And so I didn't even know what preeclampsia was. And so that was like one of the main reasons I wanted to reach out to you because, again, I was healthy. I eat really well. I do all the things. And they're telling me I have this condition that they may induce me at 37 weeks. And I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Yeah, from your experience, do you feel like a lot of people know what it is? Or, I mean, I think people are becoming more aware.
I feel like it's kind of one of those things that a lot of people don't know about until they get it.
Yes.
And then it can be kind of similar to you where it's like, okay, my blood pressure is a little high. I need some stress tests. They do the urine test to test for protein in your urine.
Right.
Because that's a sign as well. But then there's also people who out of nowhere, because I remember when I interviewed Jessica Nixon, she out of nowhere had crazy high blood pressure, like 200s, and like could have had a stroke and died, and they had to induce her. They had to like do a C-section on the spot. Thankfully, she was at the end of her pregnancy.
Right.
All right. Are you looking for the perfect gift for mom or another loved one? I have the perfect gift for you to give, and that is the skylight. I'm not able to visit my mom as much as I'd like to. I mean, we live far apart, which is why I love the skylight frame. It's a touchscreen photo frame that you can email photos to, and they appear in seconds, so mom can see all of your favorite moments. We gave it to my mom when we were in Texas last time visiting and helped her set it up, and she loves it. Actually, you know what? I'm going to have her tell you about it really quick. Hold on. Let's see if she answers.
Hello.
Hi, Mom. What are you doing?
Oh, hi. Hey, I was just doing hand exercise.
Nice. I was just talking about the skylight frame that we got you. And I wanted you to tell me why you love it.
Well, we love it because we get to see kids and grandkids and great-grandkids every day just floating across the screen. And then when somebody sends a new one, you know, a little notice pops up and says, you know, you have a new picture on there. And whether it's me or your dad, you know, either one of us say, oh, there's a new picture. And we go right away and look at it and push the little heart that says that we love it, and then it sends the notification back to whoever sent it to us, you know, so you know that we got it and everything like that. So that's super fun.
It is fun. And it's able to, like you said, I mean, all your kids live in 4 different states and your grandkids are all spread out. So you get to kind of see a little bit of everyone.
Yeah, and it's really cool. Like I had sent a science exploring kit up to Brandon's kids in Nebraska.
Yeah.
And so then Tammy sent pictures back of them making a volcano and, you know, doing things like that. And so she just sent those, and so I was able to see right through with those big old goggles on and them doing the kit. It was just really fun.
That is fun. Oh, that's cool. So nice. Okay, well, thank you. I love you. I'll call you later.
Oh, okay.
Okay, bye.
Love you. Bye.
Oh, she is the cutest. So you guys can tell my mom loves it. She absolutely loves it. The frame's 100% satisfaction guaranteed. If you don't love it, they'll offer a full refund. And it's super easy. You get an email address that you send the photos to. Like my mom said, they pop up and they're able to like them, and it gives you that notification back so you know that they got it. And it's just such a fun way to keep our family together that my parents are able to see moments from their kids and their grandkids because we are all spread out. So I would highly, highly recommend it. My mom, if we haven't sent a photo in a while, she'd be like, hey guys, make sure you send photos to the frame and then we'll send them in. So right now we have a special holiday offer. You can get $10 off your purchase of a skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/mama and enter code MAMA. That's right. To get $10 off your purchase of a skylight frame, just go to skylightframe.com/mama and enter code MAMA. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/mama. Now back to the episode. When you get pregnant, it's not like, here's a packet of everything that could go wrong.
Yes.
Just in case, here's all the signs and symptoms of everything that could be wrong with your pregnancy. So it's like, that's why I love talking to people about it, because then somebody listening can be like, I kind of have a headache and my blood pressure is a little high. Maybe I should go talk to my provider, because it could be a very serious thing when it arises. I mean, it usually is pretty serious. Most people who get it have to end up being induced.
Yes. Yeah. And I was just in such denial. So, and honestly, if my coworker wouldn't have said, check your blood pressure, I don't know if I would have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I was at the point where I was at every week appointments or getting close to that. So it would have been discovered probably one way or another. But I'm just so thankful that she mentioned that and told me to do that. And so, and I'm very much a person, if I don't want people to be like, oh, are you okay? What can I, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, don't. I'm fine. I'm fine. And so I kept saying I am fine. And so I had to do the 24-hour urine catch, which I'm like, seriously, I had no idea that was a thing. You pee and put it in a jug for 24 hours. Mm-hmm. So that was one, inconvenient, but I got the results back, and that's when they said, like, yes, you have preeclampsia. They didn't tell me what my protein levels were. So every time I would go for a stress test, or a non-stress test, which, and I don't know if you want to speak more to this, but basically I sat in a recliner and they put monitors on my stomach to see how the baby was doing.
Yeah. Heart rate. Yeah. So they'll do that if there is like a high risk condition. And then also a lot of times when you go over your due date, they'll have you come in to do it's always up to you. You do have a choice if you go over your due date, but they'll like to monitor, if you're at 41 weeks, do a non-stress test just to make sure that the baby's doing okay, that they haven't swallowed meconium, because then sometimes they could have trouble breathing, and they can kind of check for all of those different signs and symptoms to make sure that everything's going okay. But in a high risk situation, it's definitely something important that you do. I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like, non-stress test. It's making sure that you're not stressed out, your baby's not stressed out, and everything's okay.
Yes. Yeah. And every time I would go, my blood pressure it wasn't 120, but I think it was like in the 130. It was good. They would say, looks good, baby looks great. So I'm like, okay, people, this is just silly. Clearly it was a one-time thing and now it's over. And they were trying to explain to me, well, once you're diagnosed with preeclampsia, it doesn't go away. You have it. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't believe that, which is funny because I'm not in the medical field and I acted like I knew what they were talking about. And there was one non-stress test where her heart rate went down but came back up pretty quick, but they had us do an ultrasound again to check. And so did the ultrasound, looked great. They didn't see any issues. So they said maybe she pulled on the umbilical cord and just for a second, and that was it. But I was determined again that I did not want to be induced at 37 weeks. I had a plan, and I love listening to your podcast and talking to women who have their birth plans. And I know you can't bet on that, but it is, you don't want to be induced typically unless you're ready to get the baby out. But at 37 weeks, I was doing okay. So I asked, could I do another urine catch? And maybe my protein levels went down. So this is actually my husband's idea because I was complaining about it so much. He's like, well, maybe you should check. So they said, sure, you can do that. So I did it and came in. So it was a Wednesday. I was 36 weeks and 6 days. So the next day was 37 weeks and my blood pressure was high. So that wasn't a good sign already. And a doctor that wasn't my regular one came in and said, your urine levels or your protein levels in your urine were very high and we're going to need to induce you at 37 weeks. And I said, that's tomorrow. And she's like, yeah, so we can schedule it today. And I was very not a good patient because I was like, so I work in a school and I said, I just scheduled 2 field trips for next week. And that's what she did. She looked at me like I had 2 heads, like, lady, you've got to, she's like, you're having a baby. And I'm like, but I have all this stuff. So I hadn't planned when I left work that day that it would potentially be my last day of work. But luckily my provider she's so great and she knew me very well. And she had told this other doctor, she's not going to be happy about being induced. So if she is reluctant about scheduling her induction, is that what it's called? Induction?
Yeah.
Yes. that I could see her the next day and, just talk to my provider. So I went to work the next day, only told like 2 people because I was still like, no, I might be back.
Right.
It's possible she'll say no. And told my boss, the principal, and he was so sweet. And he's like, I think he knew I was not coming back, and running around like a mad woman trying to get everything ready and also trying to remember I'm one person and people have babies and life will go on at school without me. But it was hard because like I said, I had all this stuff that I had just planned and didn't want to leave anybody with more than they needed. So we walked in, my husband went with me to that appointment it was 37 weeks. It was a Thursday, and she walked in and said, it's baby time. And I'm like, really? And she said, yes. So then she started in with, because I started to get teary eyed and I'm like, I don't want to be induced. And she talked about, she's like, I'm not trying to use scare tactics with you, but this is how we lose moms and babies. And we're lucky that it's not to the point where, we're not rushing you to the hospital. Yeah. You can go home and go back at 9 p.m. You don't have to, run there. But, you're having a baby tonight or, going in tonight. And so I actually went home and took a nap. Isn't that nuts? I was able to do that.
That is nice.
I know. And I'm not like a napper, but I think I was so drained from the day before. I was so stressed. And of course, that day I went and saw my doctor the next day, I was like, well, of course my blood pressure's high. I'm stressed out. This is a very intense situation. But my nurse was awesome and she showed me, it helped me understand. So my protein levels in my urine the first time were like 525. So I guess it's supposed to be like 250. And then the second time it was in, I think, over 3,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, that is scary and that makes sense. So we went in at 9 p.m. and started it's like a tampon.
Yeah, the side attack. Is that?
Yes. Yes. So my husband and I both had our laptops out, like we're doing great. And so I finally closed my eyes to go to sleep and woke up with contractions or feeling contractions of some sort. Ended up throwing up like multiple times in the middle of the night. It escalated quickly, just not feeling well. And they checked my cervix and nothing at all. So then I think they started the Pitocin in the morning, and then my doctor came in, checked my cervix again, and was like, you're not dilated at all. And they again said it makes sense because my body wasn't ready to have a baby, but she needed to come out for the safety of both of us. And I was trying to not get an epidural, but when she checked my cervix the second time, I was in tears. And they were going to do the balloon, and I don't know if you want to speak to that, where they put a balloon up there and
it helps dilate. Yeah, it's not comfortable or fun.
Yes. So they were going to do that, and she said, if you don't get an epidural, because I mentioned an epidural, I'm like, this is terrible, and if nothing's even happening and I feel this terrible, how am I going to do this? And she said, right, and now you're all tense because it hurts.
Yeah.
But she said, if you don't get an epidural, what I just what the balloon is going to be 12,000 times worse than me checking your cervix. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting an epidural. I don't care. I'm doing it. So once I got that, I was great. My husband's like, oh my gosh, you're back. Like, I was joking. I was like being myself. I felt so much better. And I couldn't feel anything actually. So that, from the waist down. And, but they also said when you get an epidural, it actually makes your blood pressure go down. Things I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, that's good, right? Well, it actually wasn't, because baby didn't like that.
Yeah.
Because she was used to my high blood pressure. Mm. So next thing I knew, they brought the charge nurse in and they were putting oxygen on me. And they're like, it's fine. It's fine. Just breathe. I'm like, there's nothing that can be fine about the fact that you're putting oxygen on me right now.
It seems super scary. But even when everything's going well, there's times when you need the oxygen just to take some deep cleansing breaths to get oxygen all the way down to your baby to help the heartbeat regulate and to make sure that baby's getting good oxygen. But it seems really terrifying because they're putting this oxygen mask on you, and you usually see it in like movies during trauma scenes, you know?
That's so true. And that is comforting. And like I said, they said you're fine. And that's exactly what they told me. We just want to make sure she's getting oxygen. But then it was also like, well, why isn't she getting oxygen, Mm-hmm. But then they tried to like put me in all these positions, and I couldn't even move because I was all numb. And long story short, the doctor came in, and I mean, they just stood there and watched the monitor with faces that were just concerned. And I think they had called her too, because every time I had a contraction, her heart rate would drop. Mm-hmm. And so she came in and said, okay, again, it's baby time now. She said we can either have a C-section right now, like we're going to walk. It's going to be calm. Everyone's going to be, relaxed, or we can wait and we're going to be running into the operating room because this will turn into an emergency. So I said, all right, let's do it. And so it's insane how quickly.
Yeah.
We're just like, I'm like, my doctor is so cool. Like, she's a power woman. So yeah, next thing I know, she's in there. I still had my earrings in, and she took my earrings out for me. And like, she was just so sweet. And I think, half hour later, we had our baby girl. So we went in at 9 PM and she was born at 12:58 PM the next day. And, it turned out that the umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck. So just crazy. Mm-hmm. How things like that happen, that we probably would have maybe had a C-section anyway, even if her heart rate wasn't dropping.
Right. You never know. All right. We're going to take a quick break to talk about how I know every parent I know out there wants to encourage their children to pursue their dreams and provide opportunities that give them the best chance to succeed in life. I know that my kid's not even born yet. I'll get to meet them very soon, which is really exciting. But I already Vito and I are talking about how we want them to go for their dreams and do all this amazing stuff, and just to try to be really supportive and give them really good opportunities. And sometimes that means optimizing their routine, making it more flexible, more dynamic, so that they have more time to focus on the things that they love, and you can really nurture their passions. And that's why there's Laurel Springs. Laurel Springs is an accredited online private school for students in kindergarten through 12th grade. They recognize that each child is a unique individual with their own personal interests, special talents, unique learning style, and their flexible learning program offers challenging and diverse elective courses. Laurel Springs is accredited by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges in Advanced Education, which means that their transcripts are recognized by colleges and universities worldwide. They're just such an awesome program. It allows your family to have flexibility and some academic perspective. And I know that flexibility is something that a lot of people I know really value. Then they're able to travel more with their kids and experience other things and not worried about taking them out of school because your school gets to come with you. Laurel Springs is just such an amazing program, and you can register your child at laurelsprings.com/miraculous today and receive a waived registration fee. That's laurelsprings.com/miraculous for your waived registration fee. laurelsprings.com/miraculous. Now back to the episode. You said a couple of things that I loved, and one of them was my doctor is so cool. I love that you said that. Because I just it makes my heart so happy when I hear just these relationships, with client and provider that you're like, oh, I love my doctor, or, I have such a good relationship with them, or they made me feel so calm. And you said the nurses were great. It's just so awesome hearing that, because not everybody has that experience. So the fact that you just had people around you that made the experience, even though it was kind of traumatic, made your experience so much better is so amazing.
Yes, my husband and I were even talking about my doctor, and we were like, I'm like, I think I have a crush on her. And he's like, me too.
Girl crush.
Yes, and you're so right, because it's funny. I would complain about her because she didn't like my workouts that I did, and that's another story for another day. But I would continue to do them because I'm like, I'm fine. Again, I thought I was fine. And I think that is if anyone hears a message from me today is if you have been told you have preeclampsia, but you feel fine, you're not fine. And that is where the disconnect was, because how can you have something so terrible when you feel okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing that you mentioned that's amazing is, the doctor, when the doctor was saying that we, at the very beginning, when they talked about inducing you, it was okay, well, they consider full term 37 to 42 weeks. Yep. So you were at 37 weeks, and they wouldn't have done it if they thought that baby wasn't developed and ready.
Right.
But knowing that, hey, we can, because the only cure for preeclampsia, for those listening, is to have the baby and to deliver the placenta, to get everything out. That's the only cure to make it go away. And so just knowing that, we have a choice to do this, or it can get to an emergency. The other story I was sharing earlier where the blood pressure was over 200 and she could have had a stroke and died, because it does get to that point for some women. So the fact that you did notice your headache and somebody said to look into it, and you let your doctor know. And then even though you were resistant to it,
yes.
They were like, hey, listen, we care about you, and we're not going to put you in a dangerous situation. I know getting induced sounds scary. Getting a C-section sounds scary. It's 37 weeks. It's not what you planned. But, there are those situations where women have died from preeclampsia because it went unnoticed, or, they didn't know the signs or symptoms, or they didn't have that relationship with their doctor, or they didn't listen to what the doctor said. There's so many different reasons, but it can be deadly, and we have enough problems with maternal death rates in the United States anyways. So when it comes to things that are preventable, it's okay, we need to take care of this.
Yes. I mean, that's exactly what she was saying too. And she's like, we're a unique situation where she's like, I have two patients. Most medical providers only have one, and sometimes what you need is different than what baby needs.
Yeah.
But in this case, we both needed her to be born, and at 37 weeks, they did mention, there could be some lung development issues, and she could have to go to the NICU, which the hospital we deliver at doesn't have one. So that was a really scary thing to think, okay, so we have this baby and she might have to be rushed to a hospital, other than where I'm at. But thank God it all worked out. And she weighed 5 pounds, 3 ounces. And the doctor she held her for a while after. That's why yes, she's just she's a great person. And she is now, I think, almost 6 pounds. So we're doing good. We had a little bit of trouble getting her weight up just because was almost preterm and tiny. But in the hospital, we actually had to stay 4 nights, including the night we went in. And the last night we stayed because she was a little bit jaundiced. So they did a little bit of the blue light. It was cool. They had one that they put her in a blue light, but you could still hold her. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like she had to be in, a crib away from us. But they always did blood pressure checks. And I'm guessing, do they do that for everybody either way? For mom.
The blood pressure checks?
Yeah.
For the most part, I guess it depends I don't know, because where I work now, because I work at a local hospital, but it's run by a midwife group. And usually afterwards, they do blood pressure checks because a lot of people will still, even if it's an unmedicated birth, they'll still get Pitocin to deliver the placenta because it also helps with bleeding. And so usually they'll come do blood pressure checks, do those really fun lower abdomen massages.
Oh, yes.
To push, everyone's like, oh, this is the worst. They're like, this is horrible. The abdomen massages aren't fun. And then, yes, I believe so.
Yes. So I didn't know. And maybe they did check mine more, you know what I mean? Because of the preeclampsia.
Yeah.
But, so we had her on Friday. On Sunday, they checked my blood pressure and it was in the 200s.
Oh.
And so that was another crazy part that I think is important to, hear about too. They called the doctor and I guess she was like, oh, no. Like get her, they put an IV back in, which was unfortunate because I'm like, I just got my IV out and now I have to have another one. And again, felt fine. Totally fine. I mean, as fine as I could after having a C-section, but like I had been up and moving a little bit. So they had to put 2 doses of whatever medicine in my IV. The first time it didn't lower my blood pressure enough. And then they sent me home on blood pressure medicine. And so I went from 2 a day to once a day to now I am back to normal. So that is amazing that it went back down. And it just goes to show that having the baby is the cure for it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's so awesome though that you felt good after having the baby, because sometimes with preeclampsia, they have to give you a lot of magnesium to help with the blood pressure, and it can make you really drowsy and groggy afterwards. And sometimes it takes women like a couple of days to really feel like they're getting back to normal. Yeah.
And so the after part, is that's still associated with preeclampsia, I believe, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so it was just my body taking time to get used to not having baby, maybe? I don't know what but that was, I'm just thankful that we stayed. Because if we wouldn't have, they said, let's just have you stay one more night. And I'm like, wow, we didn't need to stay for her. We need to stay for me to be okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I mean, I'm definitely not a medical professional, so I've reached out to a couple of people because I would love to get somebody on who like knows so much about it. And so it's, I reached out to a couple of people who could potentially speak more to it and see, but, I'm definitely not an expert. I only know little bits here and there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think the fact that it's so unpredictable too, you just don't know, but it's listening to any kind of cue your body gives you and your doctor.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like that's what is super important even when you were saying, you had your birth plan and you had, all these things set up that you wanted to use or do for it, and it's like the whole point, I believe, I guess, in doing a birth plan is the education that comes with it, so that all of the options that are out there so you can make the best educated decisions for yourself. So you're learning about the importance of skin to skin and delayed cord clamping and the effects of whether you want an epidural or not and what Pitocin is. And you're learning so that when these options come up, it's not like if they're like, okay, we're going to give you Pitocin now. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, what is that? You have some information on it. So oh, okay, Pitocin is synthetic oxytocin, and my body's going to produce oxytocin during labor, and it simulates contractions to start, and you learn about it so that going into it, it's not a scary thing and you know what's going on. And your birth plan's like more of a wish. It's like, here's the wishes. If everything in the stars align right, which it absolutely can, but also knowing there's so many things out of our control that can happen. And when you're educated on the different things that can happen, which is why I love talking to people like you. So people listening, if they get preeclampsia, they know, that, hey, these are signs and symptoms, and it doesn't have to be a scary experience. So, it's important, I feel like, to have a birth plan because of the knowledge that comes with learning about all those different options. But also knowing that your provider wants the best for you. I know that you have motherly instincts as well that I feel like there's something there for those too, what your body's telling you and what's going on with that. So the birth plan does have a role. It's like there's your birth plan and then your birthing experience. And sometimes they align and sometimes they're completely opposite. But having the right people around you who support you make that experience 100 times better.
I love that. Yeah. And I love the way that you explain a birth plan, because I do think so many people think birth plans are silly or
Right.
It's an end all, if I don't, this is what's going to happen. This has to happen this way. And so, yeah, it did teach me so much. And you're also right. Sometimes they go the complete opposite. I mean, I don't think other than, and this is all that matters, I have a healthy baby and I'm healthy and I just jogged 2.5 miles on the treadmill. You know what I mean? Like I feel really good despite having a C-section, which is what I really, really did not want. But yeah, I like everything went the complete opposite, but there's so many things that I have to be thankful for. And in the end, it really doesn't matter how the baby comes out. You just need a healthy baby and a healthy mom.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is the number one. And that's where I feel like anybody can get on board, right? That we want healthy moms and healthy babies. And that is what is important, because it's, like I said, there's some statistics out there that are super scary, and just having more education and knowledge and trusting your providers is super important, because moms need to be taken care of 100% right now. And that's with the preeclampsia. Like, even if baby was doing fine, it's like your health is on the line and you don't want that baby to come into the world without you. And so we have to be taking care of moms right now and nurturing them and, having giving the information and letting them be a part of the experience, which I feel like when you talk about your birth experience, that's a huge part of it, was that it wasn't that all these things were happening to you, which some people feel, but that your providers made you a part of it, so that it wasn't like, okay, we're just doing all these things to your body to get the baby out. It's like, we care about you, we care about your baby, and we're all in this together to keep you guys both healthy and safe.
That is so true. Yeah. Yeah. We even went back to the hospital for lactation consultation and brought our nurse a gift. And if any healthcare providers are listening to this as well, I mean, they make a huge difference. I'm like, I will never forget the operating room nurse who I only saw during that time. When she was born, he yelled, "Happy birthday." And it was just such a fun, sweet experience. It really was.
That is sweet. Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. And it does. I had a client once that after her delivery, she had like little gift bags that she gave. She gave one to me, she gave one to the midwife, she gave one to the nurse, and then the baby nurse. And it was like the most thoughtful thing ever. I was like, it was just like a little candle and a chapstick and a calendar. And she was like, I just want to thank you guys for being part of our birthing experience. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the sweetest thing ever. I'm totally going to do this when I have a baby.
That's amazing. So she brought it to the hospital.
Yeah. Like, when she was in labor.
She's a planner. That's amazing. Aw.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's so nice. And then maybe the nurse will check on me extra or something.
Yes.
But yeah, that's so thoughtful that you went back and did that, because it definitely does make the experience so different. So I'm glad that you had a great experience with it, and that you are just willing to share your story, and that you were honest with just saying, I felt fine. I thought everything was okay. I didn't think I needed to be induced. I had a resistance to it, and just able to, I did have a birth plan and look back and be like, hey, but look at this baby girl I'm holding in my arms.
Yes, I know. And one of my favorite, most funny parts, my doctor, before the C-section, so like as we're discussing and everyone's getting ready to go into the operating room, she said, I'm going to send you to a support group where you go and say, I'm Jessica and I have preeclampsia, because I was in such denial. And I thought that obviously she knows that I can handle that kind of joking. So I just thought that was great, because I'm like, it's true. I need that. I needed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so awesome, though. I'm so happy for you. How has your recovery been then?
It really hasn't been terrible. And I think a lot of it was being active beforehand. And during, I mean, the week of the day I got induced, I was on the treadmill, which obviously people might have very differing views on that, but that's what I did. And that was what worked for me. But I'm feeling pretty good. I have like that, just the things you don't know about your scar. Like there's a bump above it. And I'm like, what is this? I'm actually going to physical therapy because I know a physical therapist who focuses on pelvic floor health. And so that is a really cool experience as well. And if anyone has ever thought about doing that, that's amazing after however you give birth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that after a C-section, there's also people who do these specific abdomen massages that helps get everything back into place, like making sure all your organs are into place. It's like this abdomen tissue massage. But
that's cool.
I wish I knew what it was called or more information about it. But I'm trying to think, who was it? Somebody came on the podcast last year and she talked about it because she had C-sections and she's a fitness trainer, and she shared the information, I believe, on it. And now I'm blanking on her name. I'm trying to look it up quick, but Nancy Anderson Fit. So if you go to her Instagram, she has a lot of information about that too, or her website, because she had C-sections and she talked about the massage and pelvic floor work and stuff like that after as well. So for those of you listening, if that's something you're interested in, she's a great resource.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of pelvic floor health. I feel like it's something that's not talked about enough, and that a lot of I almost feel like it's something that your provider should just refer you to after you have a baby. And it's something that I've considered doing before I have a baby, because I'm already scared, because the other day I sneezed and I peed a little bit. And I'm like, if this is happening now.
Yes. Well, and that's what they said. I know so many moms who say that's just their new norm. And my physical therapist, she was actually on my podcast. Her name's Rachel. She was like, that's not normal. That's not how you should live, and we can fix it, but we have to, you have to come in for physical therapy. And so she's been a huge advocate in the hospital that I delivered at. And when we get the folder full of papers about, postpartum and all of that, she has a section in there about physical therapy. And so my doctor then referred me, and I think they might just refer. I would have to ask, but I know I asked because she also teaches prenatal yoga, which I would be an advocate for as well. So she told me about it then.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess I always thought that it was hereditary because my mom had issues with it, and then my older sister, and then I'm like, well, I haven't had kids yet, but by the time I was 30, if I jumped on a trampoline, it's not like I would pee my pants, but it's like if I wasn't actively contracting, like if I'm going to sneeze, I have to be like, oh, okay, contract and then sneeze so that nothing comes out. But if I'm just not thinking about it and I kind of have to pee, then I might tinkle a little bit and when I sneeze, and I'm like, this is very worrisome.
Yeah. seriously. And yeah, that's what Rachel's like. Yeah, you can get that fixed. Like, you can do exercises and work. And so I've been doing exercises from her. And it's funny, my doctor released me to do all things fitness. I mean, listening to my body, but Rachel's like, oh, we're going to wait a little bit because she sees it from the pelvic floor health view.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had a pelvic floor person on a while ago and a couple years ago. So I think it's time to bring a new person on. I would love to talk to somebody again about all of that. Cause I just remember them saying, like, it's important to do the work before and during pregnancy, then let your body recover after. Cause that's where a lot of people end up messing up, is pushing themselves too hard after, being like, oh, I have to get back into shape. And then that's when things are like,
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm not an expert on the topic, so I definitely need to bring somebody back on, because I feel like I now have a whole new load of questions for them.
I can give you her information because she's very knowledgeable. And I think too, there's just so much pressure on women to get back and you just get so much so many compliments when you look a certain way after pregnancy.
Yeah.
Like, gosh, I can't believe. But yeah, you really got to listen to your body and let it heal, because in the long run, you want to be able to continue to do the things you did before, not injure yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your story with us, and just being open and, letting the women who are listening know that, hey, if you have these signs and symptoms, but you feel fine, it doesn't mean you are fine.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Have a good day. She was so much fun to talk to. I feel like because she just admitted how much in denial she was, and like, no way this wouldn't happen to me. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. Especially when people are like, no, I'm doing everything right. I followed this, and this. And it's like, there's so many things in pregnancy that you can follow all the rules. You could still get gestational diabetes. You can still get preeclampsia. You can get cholestasis. There's so many different things that can happen. So it's just so good to be aware. If you guys want to find out more information, go to preeclampsia.org. That website has tons of information on there. It has support, research, ways to get involved, care providers, a lot of good information on their website. Frequently asked questions, all sorts of stuff. So, definitely check that out. And again, if you're experiencing any symptoms, talk to your doctor for sure. And if you guys are listening to this, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. And if you have enjoyed the interviews, please just go on iTunes and leave a review with 5 stars and let me know what interview you loved or why you love the podcast. And that helps us get more out there for other people to see. Definitely join the Facebook group, Miraculous Mamas, the women in that community. I mean, I talk about them all the time. They're so amazing. And also the Instagram and Twitter as well. And I am just looking forward to talking with you guys next week. You guys, Sunday is Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all the mamas out there. We're going to do a Mother's Day episode Monday, and it's going to look a little bit different. We're going to focus actually on foster care and adoption. So it's Foster Care Awareness Month. I have an amazing conversation with Jen Lilly, and she just has such a heart for foster kids. And I learned so much, and honestly kind of got a little convicted during the episode too about how much more I could be doing. So it's an awesome episode. And if you've even thought about potentially doing it one day, you definitely want to listen, because there's so much more you can do besides just fostering. If you feel like that's not an option for you, there's a lot of other ways that you can help. And so she's awesome. And I love you guys. I cannot wait to continue to pump these episodes out. I'm just having such a fun time in these interviews and talking with all these women who are willing to just come on, take time out and share with us. We also have We also have some men coming on and going to share with us as well. We have Dr. Mark, who's going to come on and talk to us about dental care. He is a holistic dentist, so he approaches the mouth with the whole body concept because everything is connected. And so we have a fun conversation, get into some weird topics, but it's a lot of fun. Definitely learn a lot if you've never heard about mouth taping before. And no, it's not putting duct tape over your mouth. But we talk about that and how that could help your sleep, and also different things that affect the development of kids' mouths that affect them later in life as well, and things that we could change or do different or better. So we have a really fun, interesting conversation. But yeah, don't forget to follow us, follow along, continue to listen to these episodes. Thank you so much for taking time to listen. I know it's really hard right now with all the chaos, but it really means a lot to me, and I look forward to hearing from you. Love you guys.